Hello guys, thanks for coming back. So I just want to do a new video here comparing these two lenses again. I've done many videos comparing the Sigma Contemporary 150-600 versus the Canon 100-400 Mark II-L, and I've obviously used extenders on the 100-400 with 1.4 and 2x converters. So if you put a 1.4 on there, you'll get 560mm, and obviously a 2x would turn the 400 into 800. And obviously we've got the Sigma Contemporary here, which is a bit longer at 600mm, 150-600. This is the Contemporary version, obviously. And it occurred to me that I've never compared the image quality at 400mm on a lens sharpness test chart on the Canon 100-400 versus the Sigma at just 400mm instead of the 600 that I tend to use most of the time. So maybe this might be of interest to you guys out there to find out, is image quality similar or achievable on the Sigma Contemporary? I've done various tests, and in my opinion, at 600mm, even if you upscale the Canon up to 600mm, the Sigma is still sharper. However, that is 600mm obviously. So I've never compared apples to apples, 400mm versus 400mm. So let's have a look and see, you know, are they as good as each other, or will the Sigma trump the Canon, or will the Canon trump the Sigma? Let's have a look at the results. Welcome to the office. We're assessing image quality here on the Canon 100-400 Mark II-L versus the Sigma 150-600 Contemporary. Many of you guys out there have criticised my videos, claiming the Canon 100-400 lens is a much sharper lens, a much better lens. I wish to dispel that myth by showing you examples and evidence and proof to contrary that. There's no doubt that the Canon 100-400 Mark II-L lens EF mount is a good lens, but there's no doubt the Sigma can rival that lens. So what I thought would be a fun thing to do would be to set both lenses at 400mm. I wasn't quite able to get that completely accurate. I've got it set to 403mm on the Sigma and 400 on the Canon, but I want to have a look at sharpness and find out what is the truth. Can the Sigma rival the Canon? So without further ado, let's zoom in here to the centre of the Sigma lens, right in there at 200%. Now it seems nice and sharp and crisp there, and obviously the circle pattern here looks nice and well defined. So let's have a look at the Canon 100-400 set to 400mm. Going there to 200%, looks nice and well defined, and the circles here look nice and crisp. Comparing them, they're very similar. That's the Sigma, that's the Canon. Okay, just to let you know, in terms of aperture, we're starting out at 6.3. I realise the Canon can do 5.6, but it won't be a fair test because the Sigma starts out at 6.3. So we're going to do tests of 6.3, f8 and f16 respectively. So again, obviously let's go in there right in the centre at 300%. We're at ISO 500 on the EOS R6 20 megapixel camera. Shutter speed was around 60th of a second at 6.3. At f8 it dropped to 30th of a second, and then it was around 13th around f16. So that's roughly what the shutter speed was roughly at. We're using a remote timer, 10-second remote timer off camera. I'm not touching the lenses at all. Image stabilization for both are turned off, and this should give us a fair result. So obviously you can see the Canon there at 300%. Let's have a look at the Sigma in there at 300%, and looking at the two images side by side and giving a slight edge to the Canon here. It just seems a tad bit crisper, but it's so minor 300% is what you have to do to go and see these. Let's have a look at the circles here that we've got. Do the same on the Sigma. Again, they're very similar. So obviously this is the center, obviously. So that's the Sigma at 6.3, and that's the Canon. And they look very similar. It's up to you to make your mind up which you think is the better, the sharper. But here comes the difference. We're going to start looking at the corner. So let's go down to the far bottom corner where we've got these nice circles here. And there's a pattern within the circle. As you can see the pattern there quite clearly. Let's have a look at the Canon image in the same area. And this is like near the bottom left of the frame. And as you can see, there's less pattern detail in these circles. So that's the Canon 100-400 at 300%. And that is the Sigma Contemporary. From this you can clearly see we've got more detail, more sharpness with the Sigma lens. But let's go right down to the bottom corner and have a look at the detail there in the Sigma lens. So I like to look at these square boxes here. Now you can see a very nice fine detail pattern that's in these boxes. You got a box there, box here, and a box there. You can see these pattern details, and on the Sigma lens it's clearly defined. You can clearly make it out. It's nice and sharp, and it gives you good representation of what's actually on the sharpness chart. So let's have a look at the Canon. Let's have a look, can it compete there? So having a look over here at these boxes again, and as you can see, we've lost sharpness. What's happened to it, you might be thinking? This is the Canon 100-400 Mark II L lens, one of the sharpest Canon zoom lenses out there. Why is it I can't see that pattern detail? It's a blur there. I can't see it. So let's move across back to the circles. Again, it's less detail there. Going back to the Sigma, you can see the detail there in those boxes. Let's move over to the circle, and you can clearly see more detail in the pattern there. So at 6.3, the Sigma is significantly better in the outer edges and the far corners than the Canon lenses. But let's change things a little bit. Let's go back to the Sigma lens at f8, and let's have a look in the center. Has it improved at all? So let's just go in there at 200%. Looks nice. And let's go over to the Canon. Let's have a look at the same image in there at 200%. And have we got any difference? That's the Canon. That's the Sigma. That's the Canon. That's the Sigma. Let's go back to these circles here. So that's the Sigma lens there. And this is the Canon image. So go back to the Sigma and the Canon. If I'm honest with you, I think the sharpness has changed slightly here. I don't know if you can tell that from your screen. Obviously on YouTube it does compress things. Let's zoom in a bit more there onto the Sigma at 400% in the center, and do the same on the Canon. I'm trying to dispel a myth that the Canon is a lot better than all the other manufacturers out there. So let's have a look at 400% there, and you can see that's the Canon 100-400 Mark II L, and this is the Sigma. There's a tiny bit of pixelization happening because obviously it's only a 20 megapixel camera, but you'll be able to see the difference. So that's the Canon and that's the Sigma. They're very similar, and to be honest with you, if when you zoom out a little bit, zoom out to about 200%, go to the Canon, do the same again, zoom out to 200%. So that's the Canon, and and that's the Sigma. To my eye, the Sigma is the sharper in the centre now at f8. So we've had a look in the centre at f8. Let's go back to these circles again, which are near the lower bottom, and I want to see the sharpness at f8. So that's the Canon, and let's just come down here on the Sigma and zoom in there, both at 300%. So that's the Sigma quality that we're getting. Let's have a look at the Canon, and as you can see, it's a bit more blurred out, and the detail isn't as crisp as the Sigma lens. So again, I dispel in a bit of a myth here that just because it's got the name Canon that it's going to be a sharper lens. So obviously this is at f8. So let's go back down into the boxes again to have a look at the sharpness on these boxes. Again, it's important to note that the distance that I am away is only about 3 meters away. You know, your results may be different out in the real world, but I'm just trying to demonstrate sharpness here. So that's obviously the Sigma detail we're getting in the far corner. Let's have a look at the Canon in the far corner as well. So let's see, have we got any sort of improvement here? So that's the detail you're getting from the Canon. It's not a very good showing actually, and when I saw these results myself before I recorded this video, I was incredibly surprised. I couldn't believe my eyes, to be honest with you. So looking at this information, surely you can come to the conclusion that the Sigma is certainly a sharper lens than the Canon. However, let's stop it down a bit more, f16. So here is the Sigma image at f16. Let's just zoom in there into 200%. Are we getting any sort of diffraction happening? I don't think so. Not on full frame. You might see that on an APS-C camera, but in terms of diffraction affecting your image at f16, I don't see it there. So the Sigma lens looks nice and sharp, no major problems there. Let's have a look at the Canon, 100 to 400, in there at 200%. Are we getting good detail? Yes. Is it equivalent to the Sigma? Let's have a look. So that's the Canon detail, and this is the Sigma detail. They look very comparable to each other. It's up to you to make your mind up which you think is the sharper. Let's have a look at the Sigma detail here. Let's have a look at 300% there at f16. Looks reasonable. Let's have a look at the 100-400 at 300%. Again, looks reasonable. So that's more or less the centre really, in the fine detail on the Canon 100-400 Mark II. So I'll look at the Sigma detail. Again, up to you to make your mind up. I'm not here to tell you what to think, but obviously I am getting incredibly surprised about the performance of the Sigma lens. So let's just come down to those circles that we were looking at before. Let's zoom out a little bit because we're a bit too much in there, and do the same for the Canon 100-400 and zoom out. So we seem to have gathered some extra detail from the Canon 100-400 in terms of these circles, and it certainly is quite a bit sharper than it was at the other apertures, 6.3 and f8. So looking at this image here, you can clearly see there's some detail in the circle pattern here. Let's have a look at the same information from the Sigma Contemporary. It is certainly way sharper, certainly more detail. So again, that's the Sigma 150-600 Contemporary, and this is the Canon 100-400. It just seems less sharp to me, but again, up to you to make your mind up. Let's go over to the the squares where there is pattern detail in these squares. So let's have a look at 300% on the Canon 100-400. There seems to be a tiny bit of detail coming through on this particular box, but I don't see any sort of pattern detail in this box. Now if we have a look at the Sigma Contemporary, bring that down into these boxes, and you can see the sheer amount of detail in these square boxes with the pattern detail being revealed, quite obvious. Let's zoom in there a bit more. At 300%, that matches what we've got with the Canon. You may be on the smartphone and you may want to see this on your smartphone, so that's why I zoomed in that much. Clearly you can see clear pattern detail. The number 1 pattern is well defined, and obviously it's like a weaving going round it, and you can clearly see that. So look at the Canon again. You can't even tell that weaving going around that number 1. There's no detail there at all. So what we can clearly see is in the corners, the Canon 100-400 Mark II L lens isn't that sharp, and it's fairly reasonable in the centre. But again, let's do a fair comparison so you can quickly see it all. Let's just rearrange these where the circle pattern is. And just to give you an idea where that's located, let's fit to screen. So these are the circles we're looking at. So obviously the center here, so it's a bit down and to the left where these circles are. We're spending a lot of attention here, but I want to show you sharpness, you see. So let's just go into that at around 300% at 6.3 on all images. So, and get it to the same location so you guys can see the difference. I don't want to go too long and in depth in this video. I just want to show you where everyone keeps assuming the Canon is razor sharp and sharper than any other lens out there apart from the newer RF lenses, and I don't think that's the case. Anyway, this is the Sigma image at 6.3. Nice and sharp. And you see that pattern detail. This is the Canon 100-400. Same aperture. And clearly it's a bit softer. Quite a bit softer, I would say. Then at f8, the Sigma lens. Again, it shows good detail. And you can clearly see the pattern detail. The Canon at f8 next, and I can barely see any of that pattern detail at all. So have a look at f16 on the Sigma. We see good detail in the Sigma lens. It's a tad bit softer than it was at f8, but it still looks good. And let's have a look at the Canon finally. While some of that pattern detail is coming through at f16, it still is a bit on the soft side. But let's have a look at the comparisons at the different apertures with the Sigma lens alone. So at 6.3, f8 and f16. Let's have a look at the Canon next. The Canon at 6.3, the Canon f8, Canon f16. So I'm hoping that gives you a good indication on sharpness when it comes to the Sigma lens. And while a lot of you guys out there criticising me saying I don't know what I'm talking about, blah blah blah, and the Canon is an amazing lens, amazingly sharp, I'm not disputing it's not a good sharp lens, but is it sharper than the Sigma lens? There is the proof. Hope the video helped you out understand where I'm coming from when I tell you that my Sigma lens is incredibly sharp, and a lot of lenses I put up against it as a ballpark. You know, basically it's my go-to lens for sharpness and taking pictures in the field in terms of wildlife photography, and that's why I use that lens more than any other lens. It's so sharp. The only thing that lets it down is the stabilization isn't as good as the Canon. Anyway, thanks for watching. I do appreciate your time. Wow, I didn't expect that from the Sigma Contemporary 150 to 600 Sigma lens, EF mount. I didn't expect that. To outperform the Canon, even at 400mm, is amazing. I didn't expect that at all. So pretty much image quality in the centre is pretty much even Stevens, although you might give us minor edge to the Canon on that. But when you start moving away from the centre of the frame towards the corners, the Sigma lens is blowing away the Canon at every aperture I tried. f6.3, f8, f16, way sharper than the Canon 100-400 Mark II L is. Don't get me wrong, the Canon is a fantastic lens, and it does have the ability to go to 5.6, which is a slightly bigger aperture than 6.3, lets more light in, so it may be usable in lower light situations. But it's clearly obvious to me, and hopefully you can see that, because a lot of comments I receive are from people that sort of disagree with me and doubt what I say, what I am saying is the truth. And you know, don't take my word for it. You've seen the examples, make your own mind up. Other reasons why you would want to possibly have the Canon 100-400 Mark II L instead might be better image stabilization, because with the Sigma you can't use the stabilization on a tripod, but with the Canon you can. The stabilization on the Sigma I don't think is rated as high as 4 stops, to be honest with you. Probably 3 is more realistic, and it has sometimes have an effect of being a little bit jittery sometimes. For photographs, the Sigma lens is better. I won't lie to you. And in terms of the Tamron 150 to 600 G2 that I tested and did multiple tests, it's literally, the Sigma lens is better on mirrorless cameras for definite. It's quicker to autofocus on mirrorless cameras. When it came to digital SLRs, I found the Tamron and the Sigma were equal, pretty much. The only difference was image quality. Image quality on the Sigma lens that I have here outperformed the Tamron lens significantly. Way sharper, and another issue that I don't think has been mentioned, chromatic aberration was less obvious on the Sigma than it was on the Tamron. In fact, it was pretty bad on the Tamron lens. I didn't like it at all. Chromatic aberration in terms of the Canon, well controlled, no major problems there. So essentially you've seen the examples, make your own mind up guys, but from what I've seen today, even at 400mm, the Sigma lens is sharper. And when you start going to 600, it's got more capability then. The Sigma lens is better. I suppose other reasons why you might want to get the Canon, obviously a smoother image stabilizer, better for video. It's obviously got a better aperture, 5.6. It's a lot. Well, they're about the same in terms of weight. No major difference there. And that's it really. Apart from it being a bit smaller. Obviously, it is smaller. If we just take the lens hood off, that's the lens without the lens hood. Let's do that with the Sigma. And obviously, that's the size difference. There's quite a big difference there. Obviously if you zoom that out and do the same with the Canon, they still have a bit of a difference. I'd say there's about 2 inches difference. So I hope the examples cleared it up for once and for all that the Sigma lens is sharper, in my opinion. You know, it's up to you to make your own assessment of what I've shown you, but you know, I think the examples prove it beyond doubt for me. But let me know what you think, and if you do want to leave a comment, you know, please be respectful. You know, there's no need to be nasty about it. Anyway, thanks for watching. Have a nice day, and hope you have a nice weekend. Bye bye.